She was 27 and most days she felt older than that. Not in a sad way, more like she had somehow lived too many ordinary mornings in a row. She woke up early because she needed to. She worked at the same small Italian restaurant on the corner of the old street. There was nothing wrong with the place. People liked the food. The lights looked warm at night and the smell of garlic always made strangers hungry even when they were not planning to eat. It was not a bad life, just a quiet one. But she did not choose quiet. Quiet simply chose her first. Her work shifts always started the same. Black shoes, black pants, hair tied back. She reached the restaurant before the lunch rush. She signed her name on the timesheet, put her apron on, and she blended into the rhythm of clattering plates and soft music from the speakers. People looked at her, but they did not see her. They saw a server, someone who took orders, someone who asked, "Would you like water or something else to drink?" Someone who cleared empty plates when the table was done. She had become very good at making other people comfortable. She knew how to smile without looking fake. She knew how to keep her tone soft when someone complained about something small. She knew how to move fast but appear calm, and she knew how to handle a full section even when she had too many tables at once. She earned decent tips on good days. She saved most of that money because she had learned early that safe decisions often looked boring. She had become practical. But nobody asked her why. Nobody asked what she once dreamed about. And that was strange because she once dreamed loudly. She once wanted something bigger than this town. Music was not just a hobby for her when she was younger. It was breath. It was the language she understood even when she did not understand people. She was once the child who stayed in the music room long after the school bell rang. She was once the one who played until her hands shook, not because she was tired but because she wanted one more perfect moment. But life changed slowly, not with one dramatic event, not with one heartbreak, but with small practical choices stacking on top of each other. At first she took a break from piano because she got a part-time job. Then she started working more hours because she needed to pay rent. Then she told herself she would practice on weekends. Then weekends became extra shifts. Then days flew past her like pigeons startled by car horns. 1 month became 1 year. And suddenly she realized she had not touched a piano in almost 3 years. At the restaurant table, number 6 was always her favorite. It sat close to the window. People who sat there always looked outside at the street. They looked like they were thinking. She liked those customers the most. They seemed like people who had stories. Sometimes she imagined what their lives were like before they sat down. Maybe they were travelers. Maybe they were waiting for someone. Maybe they had dreams they never shared, just like her. She did not hate being a server. She found comfort in the routine. She liked the soft hum of the espresso machine. She liked the little victories when she remembered someone's usual order before they spoke. She liked seeing regular customers bring new friends because the restaurant felt warm to them. She liked that her coworkers called her reliable, but sometimes her heart felt heavy at the same time. Because she could not help thinking of the girl she used to be. The one who sat at a piano bench with her back straight, eyes intense, and fingers ready to create something beautiful. That girl was fearless. That girl wanted to play on stages. That girl never imagined she would ever forget what it felt like to be in love with sound. People who sat in her section had no idea she carried music inside her like a memory trapped in a closed room. And the strange part was she rarely told anyone. Not even close friends. When people asked, "So what would you want to do if you did not work here?" she always shrugged and said something like, "I'm not sure. I haven't thought about it in a long time." It was easier to pretend she never wanted anything than to explain why she had stopped trying. When she clocked out at the end of a shift, she sometimes walked home slowly. The city was not huge, but it was alive. Cars on the street, food delivery bikes moving fast, people laughing outside bars, music leaking from open windows of apartments above shops. She would hear someone practicing guitar or someone playing electronic beats. She always kept walking when she heard those sounds. She pretended she did not care, but she heard every note. She wondered sometimes if dreams can fall asleep like people do. And if they can, she wondered if they can also wake back up on their own, or if someone needed to shake them first. Once during a slow weekday afternoon, she was wiping a table when she heard a customer say something that stuck to her brain in a strange way. The customer did not talk to her directly. They were talking to someone across the table. They said how most people give up before they even become good. It was such a casual statement. Not dramatic, not emotional, but it made something inside her tighten for a second. She walked back to the kitchen and stood near the sink for a moment. Her hands were wet. Her eyes were suddenly warm. She blinked it away before anyone noticed. She was not sad that her life was normal. She just felt unfinished. People often joked that servers had no real personality to customers. They were just moving bodies. They were just background. And she understood that. She knew it was not personal. People came to eat not to think about who served them. But sometimes she wished someone would pause long enough to see her the way she used to see herself. She remembered the smell of fresh polished wood from her old piano at home. She remembered the weight of the pedal under her right foot. She remembered the way the cushion of the bench would sink slightly as she sat down. She remembered the feeling of keys under her hands when she pressed them lightly, just to test the sound before she played for real. Those memories were fading around the edges, like old photographs left out in sunlight, but they were still there, faint but not gone. Sometimes she imagined opening the lid of a piano again, just out of curiosity, just to see if her fingers remembered the patterns. But then she would shake her head and laugh at herself quietly. She would tell herself, "Not now. I do not have time for that anymore." Practical thoughts always won, because practical thoughts paid rent. But deep down she knew that she did not stop playing because she lost interest. She stopped playing because life made her choose comfort over risk. And once you choose comfort enough times, risk becomes scary. She had no idea that this ordinary routine she lived every day was about to be interrupted. She had no idea something inside that restaurant would wake up a part of her that had been quiet for years. She had no idea that a single moment would take her from someone who served water and pasta to someone who made strangers stop talking because they were listening. She had no idea yet. All she knew was that today was another shift, another row of tables, another night of plates coming and going. But life sometimes hides the turning point in plain sight, like a treasure sitting in a dusty room no one pays attention to. And right now, without knowing it, she was walking closer to it every single day. The old piano did not look like something special. It looked more like something someone forgot about a long time ago. It stood in the back storage room near the extra soda bottles, stacked napkin boxes and flour bags that they used for homemade bread. Most people who worked there did not even notice it anymore. It had been there since before she started. Some workers had been there longer than her, and they said the piano came with the building when the owner took over the lease years ago. It was not even centered in the room. It sat crooked, as if someone pushed it off the way so they could make space for other things. The dark wood was scratched, and dust lived in the spaces between the keys. The lid had a small crack at the corner. The bench had one leg slightly shorter than the others, so it wobbled if someone sat on it. The piano did not look magical. It did not look like something that could change anything. It looked more like a leftover, something past its purpose, something forgotten. But sometimes forgotten things carry stories. She used to walk past that piano almost every single shift without thinking. She walked into the storage room to get new silverware roll-ups. She went in there for napkins and coffee cups. She got sparkling water bottles from the extra case on the lower shelf. Every single time she went in, she moved around that piano like it was just a wall. Her eyes did not even land on it. She had trained herself not to notice anything that reminded her of what she used to love. That piano was like a ghost of her past, and maybe part of her brain thought it was safer to pretend the ghost was not there. But one slow afternoon changed something small. It was not a dramatic day. Nothing unusual happened. There was no big loud moment where the world shook. It was just a slow lunch, the kind where tables stayed empty and servers leaned against counters waiting for a new table number to show up on the screen. The restaurant music was soft, almost too soft to make the place feel alive. She was finishing restocking napkins in the storage room when her hand brushed against the piano lid. At first she did not even react. She almost ignored it, but her hand stayed there for one extra second longer than needed. That tiny moment felt strange, like muscle memory tried to wake up, like some old version of her was whispering from inside her bones. She froze. She stared at the brown surface under her hand. It was dusty. It felt cold, but her heart started beating faster. She did not lift the lid right away. She stood there with her hand on it, trying to figure out what she was scared of. It made no sense. This was just a piano. Just wood and metal and strings. Why would touching a piano lid feel like stepping toward a cliff? Why would a simple object make her chest feel tight like she was about to jump into something she was not ready for? But she could not walk away. Something inside her said this moment mattered. She slowly lifted the lid. A small puff of dust floated up like clouds of tiny memories. The keys were not completely broken. They were just old. Some were slightly yellow. Some had tiny cracks. But they still looked like piano keys. They still looked like a door to the place inside her that she stopped visiting. She sat down on the bench, but she did not sit all the way. She sat like someone testing the temperature of water before stepping into a pool. The bench wobbled. She felt the uneven leg shake under her. She placed her hands on her lap first. Her fingers felt nervous, which surprised her. How could fingers feel nervous? Fingers are just fingers. They do not know fear, but hers felt like they did. She lifted her right hand and placed one finger on a key. She pressed down gently. The note sounded flat and dull. She had expected that. She knew it would be out of tune, but somehow the sound still hit her the way rain hits dry ground. It spread fast. It made something inside her wake up sharply. She pressed a second key, then a third. They were all slightly wrong in pitch, but somehow they still sounded like truth. Before she realized what she was doing, both hands were resting on the keys. She took a slow breath. She closed her eyes. She told herself she would play something small. Maybe just a few notes. Nothing serious. Nothing real, but her fingers knew more than she remembered. They moved on their own. They found patterns they learned many years ago. They found shapes. They found sounds. They found the language she used to speak without words. Her heart started beating faster and softer at the same time. She could not understand the mix of feelings inside her. She felt almost embarrassed even though no one was watching. She felt almost excited even though she told herself she was just messing around. She kept playing. Not for long. Maybe just 20 seconds. But those 20 seconds felt like time changed shape. It felt like she stepped into her old skin for the first time in years. And that skin still fit. Her eyes opened again. She looked around the room to make sure no one had walked in. The room was empty. She was alone with the dusty boxes and the old piano that now felt like a secret door. She lifted her hands off the keys. She stood up. She closed the lid carefully like she was closing something fragile. She walked back out to the restaurant floor trying to look normal, but nothing inside her felt normal anymore. Her heart was awake in a way she forgot it could be. For the rest of the shift, she moved like she always did. She took orders. She dropped plates. She filled water glasses. But her mind stayed in that small storage room. Every time she walked by the back hallway, her body felt a pull. Almost like gravity. Almost like something inside that piano called to her. But she did not go back to it that same day. She told herself she should not. She told herself the moment was a mistake. She told herself she did not need to stir up old dreams that had no place in her current life. But she also knew that what she felt in those 20 seconds had more honesty than anything she had felt in a long time. Later that night, after she clocked out, she stayed standing at the corner near the entrance of the restaurant. She waited a minute before leaving. She looked through the window at the tables she had cleaned, the chairs stacked upside down, the dim lights that always looked warmer after closing. She thought about the piano again. She thought about how she felt when she pressed the keys. She thought about how she had not felt that alive in years. She finally walked home. The air outside was cool. The streets were not busy. She listened to footsteps echo as she moved down the sidewalk. She knew she would touch that piano again, even if she told herself she should not, even if she pretended she did not. Some moments change everything quietly, and you only realize the meaning later. She was not ready to admit it to herself yet, but she had already stepped toward a new path the second she rested her finger on that first dusty key. She went to bed that night with her hands slightly curled, the way they used to when she practiced piano for hours. Her fingers remembered shapes even while she slept. Life did not suddenly shift that day. But a tiny door opened, and sometimes one tiny open door is all it takes for a dream to start breathing again. The next day at work, she tried to pretend nothing was different. She tried to move around the restaurant floor like she always did. She tried to look normal, to sound normal, to feel normal. But her mind kept drifting back toward the storage room even when she did not want it to. It felt ridiculous in a way. One small moment, one old dusty piano, and suddenly she could not think straight. She did not plan for this. She did not ask for this. But once something wakes up inside you, it does not fall back asleep just because you tell it to. She spent the morning doing her usual tasks. She rolled silverware wraps tightly and clean. She filled condiment bottles. She checked water pitchers. She wiped down table edges. She helped set up the side station. Everything looked exactly the same as every other day. The lights were soft. The quiet music from the speakers sounded like the same playlist the restaurant had been using for months. Nothing around her was new, but she was not the same. Every few minutes she would catch herself staring toward the hallway that led to the back. She would force her attention back to the floor. She would tell herself, stay focused. But her heart did not listen. Something in her body wanted to go to the piano again, even though she felt nervous about it. It was strange how strong the pull felt. It almost felt like her hands were moving before her mind could speak. She told herself she would not go back to the storage room until her break. She did not want to risk someone seeing her or thinking she was slacking. She wanted to stay in control. She wanted the moment to be private again, like the day before. She wanted this to be her moment alone. The lunch rush came and went slower than usual. The tables filled up, but customers stayed quiet. People ordered small dishes, shared salads, drank iced tea, and talked softly. It was one of those days where the restaurant felt peaceful. Not boring, just calm. It almost felt like the world was giving her a chance to slow down. And she needed that. During her break, she walked toward the storage room in a quiet, careful way. She did not want to look like she was rushing or excited. She tried to move like she always did so no one asked questions. She pushed open the storage room door and stepped inside. She stood there for a moment with the door still slightly open. She listened for footsteps out in the hall. When she heard nothing, she gently pushed the door closed. The piano sat in the same exact spot. Old, scratched, dusty. But now it felt different because yesterday changed how she saw it. It was no longer just an object. It was a doorway inside her own memory. Like somewhere inside that wood, there were pieces of her past waiting for her. She walked toward the bench. She brushed a little dust off the lid with her hand. She lifted it again slowly. The keys sat there like an invitation. She sat down. The bench wobbled again like it did yesterday. She placed her hands on her lap for a second to steady her breath. Then she placed both hands on the keys. She did not know what she would play. She had not decided anything. She was not thinking about a specific song. There was no plan. She just wanted to touch sound again. She let her fingers fall softly on the keys. She pressed one note. Then she pressed two notes together. They sounded wrong in pitch but right in feeling. Her fingers moved again. She started forming small shapes without thinking. Just soft patterns, little groups of notes. She was not trying to show off. She was not trying to perform. She was only trying to see if something still lived in her. Her fingers remembered tiny movements. They remembered how to settle heavy on the keys for deep notes, how to float light for soft ones. She could feel the memory inside her hands waking up again. She closed her eyes for a moment so her fingers could lead her instead of her mind. Music looked like something inside her head, like colors and shapes and small waves of emotion. She followed those shapes with her hands. She did not need sheet music. She did not need to think about rules. She only needed to feel. She pressed the keys carefully, slow at first. Then slower turned into steady. Steady turned into smoother patterns. Patterns turned into a small melody. The melody was not perfect. It was not loud. It was not fancy. It was simple, but simple can sometimes be the most honest. She forgot she was in the storage room for a moment. The room dissolved into nothing around her. The smell of boxes and cleaning supplies disappeared. Time felt different. She did not know if she had been playing for 1 minute or 5. All she knew was that something inside her chest felt warm again. Something inside her ribs felt like it expanded. Something inside her heart felt like a window opened. When she finally opened her eyes and stopped playing, she was breathing heavier, but not because she was tired, because she was alive. That was the word that came into her mind. First, alive. She had not felt that in so long that she almost forgot how strong it could. She gently closed the piano lid and sat there staring at it. She did not rush to stand up. She wanted to hold the feeling before it faded. She placed her hand flat on the lid and whispered inside her own mind without using her voice. I still have this inside me. I am not empty. When she walked back into the restaurant floor, she felt like she held a secret. A secret not heavy with fear, but warm with potential. A secret that was not about her past, but about what could still happen. She finished her break and returned to her tables. She took orders again. She smiled again. She did everything she always did. But now she had something new hidden inside her movements. Every small step she took, she felt like she was walking towards something she could not see yet, but she could sense. Like something was waiting for her around a corner she had not reached. Later that evening, when the restaurant slowed again before closing, she passed the hallway one more time. She did not go back in the room that third time today. She just paused near the entrance of the hallway. She looked toward it and smiled a little, the way someone smiles when they know a secret that no one else knows. She remembered something important as she stood there. Dreams do not disappear. They only go quiet. Sometimes they wait in old dusty corners. Sometimes they wait in storage rooms beside boxes. Sometimes they wait in old scratched pianos no one cares about. She walked toward the front of the restaurant to help clean up before closing. She did not rush anymore. She wanted to take her time. She wanted to move slow and steady because she knew this day mattered. She finally understood something simple but powerful. Her dream was not gone. It was not dead. It was not finished. It was simply waiting for her to return, and she did. That moment in the storage room was proof. Her hand still knew how to speak, and her heart still knew how to listen. She walked home that night more sure than the night before. She did not yet tell herself she was going to change her life. She did not yet build a plan in her mind. She did not try to imagine the future too far, but she did something more important. She allowed herself to hope again. She did not know how many days passed before the moment happened. It was not a long time, but it was not just one day either. It was enough days for her to get used to the feeling of sneaking into the storage room. Enough days for her fingers to loosen, relax, remember, grow softer and sharper at the same time. Enough days for her to stop feeling scared and start feeling curious instead. She never stayed long. She did not treat it like practice. She treated it like breathing. Just a few minutes, small patterns, simple movements. She did not try to push herself. She did not try to do anything impressive. She only tried to reconnect with the feeling she once had. She always played during slow pockets of time. When the lunch rush ended and the restaurant exhaled. When the dinner rush had not started yet and the dining room was half full of silent tables. She could hear the hum of the air conditioner through the walls when she played. She liked that. It made her feel even more hidden. She thought she was careful. She always made sure no one followed her. She listened before she pressed even the first key. She always closed the lid quietly if she heard footsteps outside. She was careful, like someone protecting a fragile seed, because that was what the piano had become for her. A new seed in soil she thought had dried up. She did not think anyone would ever know what she had been doing. Not because she was ashamed, but because it did not feel like something that belonged to the world yet. It belonged to her. It belonged to her heart. It belonged to her alone, but life does not always ask before it reveals something. It was a weekday evening. Not too busy. Not too slow. A small group sat near the back booth. A couple sat near the window. An elderly pair sat near the bar. It was the kind of night that felt gentle. She liked nights like that. They felt safe. Her break time arrived a little earlier than usual because the server rotation shifted unexpectedly. She walked to the storage room again, but this time she did not hesitate like before. She opened the door and walked straight in, like someone entering their own room. She lifted the piano lid, placed her hands on the keys, and began to play. She played slow and soft. She did not try to be careful about time today. She let herself drift a little more than usual. She closed her eyes again. Her shoulders relaxed. Her breathing settled into the rhythm of the music. The room felt warmer than it usually did. It felt like it was holding her instead of hiding her. She did not know she had drifted deeper into the playing than she normally allowed herself to. She did not hear the storage room door open. She did not hear the soft footsteps behind her. She did not know that she was not alone anymore. The owner stood in the doorway. He had stepped into the room quietly because he needed a supply item. He had not planned to return. He had forgotten something at the office in the back area and walked through the hallway with no real thought in his head. But when he heard those soft piano notes, he froze in the doorway. He did not move. He did not speak. He only watched. He watched her shoulders move with the sound. He watched her fingers slide across keys like they were old friends. He watched the way she leaned slightly toward the piano as if she wanted the sound to enter her body. Watched her as someone would watch an artist without wanting to interrupt. She did not know she had been seen until she stopped playing. She lifted her hand slowly, opened her eyes and lowered the lid softly. Then she turned. She did not gasp, but she did freeze. Her breath caught in her throat. Her heart kicked against her ribs. She could not hide the fact that she was shocked. There he stood, quiet, calm, not angry, not upset, just standing near the shelves. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She tried again. Still nothing. She felt trapped between embarrassment and fear and confusion. She wanted to explain herself, but she did not even know where she would begin. The owner walked a few steps closer. Not fast, just steady. He looked at the piano and then he looked at her. He said something simple. Something so plain it almost felt unreal. "Why do you not play out there?" She stared at him. She did not understand what he meant at first. Her mind tried to translate his words into safer ones. She thought maybe he was just asking why she was playing here in private. But his tone was not confused. It was thoughtful. He was not asking a question with disbelief. He was asking with curiosity. She finally found her voice. It came out almost like a whisper. "I am just a server." The owner shook his head slowly, not in a harsh way, more like someone correcting a statement that was not true. "Maybe you are a server," he said, "but you are also something else." She did not know how to respond. She was not used to someone seeing her like that. People saw her in parts her whole life. The part that worked hard, the part that smiled politely, the part that kept things moving. But no one had seen the part of her that played piano in years. He looked at the old instrument again. "This piano has been here since the restaurant opened," he said quietly, "but no one has ever made it sound alive like that." She felt heat in her chest. Not embarrassment exactly. Something deeper, like she had been uncovered. The owner went silent for a moment. Then he spoke again. "Come in early tomorrow," he said, "before the lunch crowd. I want to hear you play again." Her breath stalled. She shook her head lightly before she could stop herself. "I cannot do that," she said. He looked at her calmly. Why not? She did not have a real answer. She did not know how to say she was afraid of what would happen if she allowed herself to take music seriously again. She said the only thing she could think of, "I am not ready." The owner took a breath and nodded. "Then take tonight to decide if you want to be." He left the room. He did not wait for her to respond. He walked out quietly and allowed the door to stay slightly open behind him. She sat on the bench without moving for almost a full minute. She stared at the piano keys and felt her heartbeat grow loud in her ears. She felt like the room had changed shape around her. No one had ever asked her to play in front of others in years. No one had ever suggested she could be more than what she was right now. She left the storage room slowly and returned to the restaurant floor. Her shift continued. She smiled. She served. She cleared tables. But it felt like her life had split into two pieces, before that moment and after. When she walked home that night, the air felt different. She felt like the world had opened a new door. Not a dusty one hidden in the back room, a door right in front of her, and now she had to decide if she would walk through it. She woke up the next morning with a heavy feeling in her chest. She did not sleep well, not because she was tired, but because her mind did not stop running. Every time she closed her eyes, she played through the moment again. The moment when the owner stood behind her. The way his voice sounded when he told her to come in early. The way her heart felt like it had been pushed into the open. She got dressed slower than usual. She kept thinking there was still time to turn back. There was still time to forget it happened. There was still time to pretend she never touched the piano at all. But a different part of her kept whispering something else. A small voice inside her said she needed to try. She needed to at least see what could happen. If she gave up now, she knew she would regret it. And regret was heavier than fear. She reached the restaurant before the lunch shift. She walked in through the back door because it felt less frightening than the front door. The dining room was empty. No sounds, no clinking plates, no conversations. Just silence. The owner stood near the piano. He was quiet, calm, not rushed. He nodded at her gently. Not with pressure, but like he expected she would show up. Like he believed she could show up, she could not speak. Words felt trapped in her chest. She simply walked to the piano bench and sat down. Her back was straight. Her palms felt sweaty, and she was terrified even before she played a single note. She opened the lid. She looked at the keys. She breathed in. She began to play. At first it was soft, almost like she was scared the piano would break if she pressed too hard. But slowly her fingers relaxed. Slowly her breath started to move in rhythm. Slowly she forgot about the owner standing behind her. Slowly she forgot about her nerves. Slowly the music began to rise. Not loud, but strong, full, clear. Every note carried emotion. Not sadness, not fear. Something warm. Something that had been buried for a long time. Something she thought she had lost. When she finished, she did not look up at first. She did not want to see the owner's face. She did not want to see judgment or confusion or disappointment. But when she finally lifted her eyes, he was looking at her like someone looking at a door to another world. He did not speak at first. When he finally did, his voice sounded thoughtful. "Music like this is not meant to stay hidden in a storage room forever," he said. Her heart shook again. She swallowed. "I am not sure I am ready to play in front of other people," she said softly. He nodded. "I understand, but I think we can start in small steps." She waited, but he did not say anything more yet. He walked to one of the front tables, pulled out a chair, and sat down like someone thinking through details. "We will begin like this," he said. "You do not have to play in front of a full room yet. For now, you will play only during early dinner hours, when there are only a few tables. When the restaurant is still quiet." She blinked. She did not expect something so gentle. She had prepared herself for a huge public moment, a big announcement. People watching. She thought she had to leap all at once, but he was offering her a slow bridge, a softer beginning, almost like he understood her heart. She took a slow breath. "When would this start?" she asked. "Tonight," he said. Her stomach dropped again. Tonight. Not next week. Not next month. Tonight she wanted to run. She wanted to hide. But she also wanted to try, so she nodded. "I will try," she said. The owner smiled. Not a big smile. "Just a soft one. That is all you need to do," he said. That night she changed into her uniform the same way she always did. She tied her apron. She tied her hair. She buttoned her shirt. But inside her heart everything felt different. She worked the first part of her shift like always. She took drink orders. She carried plates. She refilled water glasses. She smiled at customers. She moved quickly between tables. But inside her mind she kept glancing at the piano across the room. It looked bigger now, like it had grown. When the clock reached the hour the owner had decided, he approached her quietly and gave her a small signal. Not dramatic, not loud, just a nod. She walked toward the piano slowly. She felt like every footstep was louder than it actually was. She sat down at the bench. She inhaled. She lifted the lid. There were only a few customers inside. Maybe 3 or 4 tables. People were eating. People were talking quietly. People were not paying attention to her, and in some strange way that made her feel safer. She began to play. The first notes came out gentle. She did not push too hard. She wanted to ease into it. She wanted to make the sound blend naturally with the room. She did not stare at anyone. She looked only at the keys. Each note felt like a small step forward. Slowly, a few heads began to turn. Not in shock, not in confusion, but in simple curiosity. Someone lifted their eyes from their bowl of soup. Someone else paused in conversation for half a second. Someone near the bar leaned back slightly to hear better. No one looked annoyed. No one looked bothered. No one looked like she was doing something wrong. Their faces looked peaceful, and this gave her courage. She kept playing. She felt the music flow through her. She forgot about her nerves. She forgot about fear. She forgot about the past. She forgot about everything except the sound she was creating. For the first time in many years, she felt like music was not something she had lost. Music was something she still owned. When she finished the short piece, she did not expect anyone to react. She thought maybe they would return to eating, but something quiet happened. A man sitting near the back table tapped his fork gently against his glass, the way people sometimes do when they want to show appreciation, not loudly. Just a soft sound. Then someone else nodded toward her. Another person smiled. It was not applause. It was not loud. It was not dramatic, but it was real. She stood up and walked back toward the kitchen area. Her heart was beating fast. The owner was standing near the counter, and when she passed him, he gave her a small nod of approval. "You did well," he said. She felt her throat tighten again. She wanted to say something, but she needed a moment to breathe. She needed to let the feeling settle inside. She returned to her normal tasks. She wiped a table. She brought someone more napkins. She filled drink refills, but her hands shook slightly every time she touched something. She felt like a new world had opened and she had stepped into it. At the end of the night, when she clocked out, she walked home with a different feeling in her chest. She was not floating. She was not shocked. She was not confused. She was hopeful, because for the first time she could imagine herself not just as a server, but as someone who created moments, someone who created sound, someone who could move people, even if it was only a little, even if it was only for a few seconds. That night she sat on her bed and she thought about the past. She thought about the days when music felt heavy, when it felt like pressure, when she could not breathe under it. Now it felt light again. She closed her eyes and realized something. She did not just play piano tonight. She opened a door and she had walked through it. The next week moved in a strange, quiet rhythm. She worked her shifts like always. She smiled. She carried plates. She listened. She wiped tables. She tied her hair the same way each night. But there was something different in her chest now. She felt lighter inside. She walked a little slower between certain moments. She paid attention to the piano even when she was not sitting in front of it. She was still nervous every time she played during the early dinner hour. But every night felt a little easier. Every night she felt a little more present. Every night her hands felt a little more steady. And every night she felt a little more like she belonged there. Customers began to notice her more often. Not in a loud way, not in a show business way, just in a gentle human way. Some people asked the server at their table who the piano player was. Some asked how long she had been with the restaurant. Some asked if she played somewhere else before. The servers would just shrug and say she worked here like them. The quiet attention made her nervous sometimes. But it made her feel proud too. A kind of pride she had not felt in a long time. A pride that came from doing something she once believed she could never do again. One night near the end of the week, the restaurant was more full than usual during her early playing time. People were not loud, but they were engaged. They looked relaxed. They looked peaceful. Some leaned back in their chairs and listened like they were listening to a story. Some paused in conversation for a few seconds at a time just to hear how her music flowed from one phrase to the next. She did not look at their faces for long. She tried not to stare. But she could feel when the room was with her. It was not a loud kind of attention. It was soft attention, like the room was breathing with her. When she finished her short set, she stood up, closed the lid gently, and walked toward the back area. She still felt shy when she stopped playing. She did not know how to accept direct attention yet. It still made her heart beat faster. That night when she clocked out, the owner stopped her before she could leave. Not in a commanding way. He just placed his hand lightly on the counter and looked at her with a calm expression. "I have something to tell you," he said. Her stomach tightened a little, but she nodded. "Someone sitting at one of the tables tonight asked about you." He continued. She blinked. She waited. The owner's voice stayed steady. "He works at a small community center. They organize little weekend events. Music, art, simple things. He asked if you might want to play one evening there." Her breath caught in her chest. She could not speak right away. "This is not pressure," the owner added gently. "You do not have to say yes. But I thought you should know. People are noticing." She felt a strange warmth move through her body. She never expected something like that so soon. She never imagined someone outside the restaurant would hear her and think she belonged somewhere else too. She was scared, deeply scared. But she was also curious, and curiosity was stronger than fear now. "What kind of event is it?" she finally asked. The owner explained that the community center had a small open stage each weekend. Nothing fancy. No tickets. No special announcements. People from the neighborhood came to play music or read poetry or share small creative pieces. Some came just to listen. It was a gentle space. A safe space. She nodded slowly. She did not say yes. She did not say no. Her chest felt tight and open at the same time. "I need time to think," she said. "Of course," the owner replied. On her way home that night, she walked slower than usual. The streets were quiet. The air was cool. The city lights reflected off windows. She listened to the sound of her footsteps and noticed something new. She felt like she had reached the edge of another beginning. She lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. She thought about the years she had stopped playing. She thought about all the days she had passed the piano in silence. She thought about all the times she believed she had destroyed her own gift. But now she could feel her gift again. Not as something to prove, not as something to fear, but as something she could hold in her hands like a small warm light. The next night when she returned to work, she still had not decided. She still played during the early dinner hour, and this time the sound felt even more honest. She did not think about perfection. She did not think about impressing anyone. She only thought about telling a feeling. The feeling of being alive again. When she finished, the room stayed quiet for a moment before the normal sounds slowly returned. She sat there with her hands resting on the keys for a few seconds before she stood up. When she walked toward the back area, the owner was waiting again. Not to rush her, not to push her. Just to be present, she walked past him, then stopped. She turned back. "I think I want to try," she said. The owner smiled in a quiet way. Not proud, not shocked, just pleased. "I will tell them tomorrow," he said. She breathed out slowly and nodded. 2 weeks later, she stood near the back of the small community center. People were sitting in chairs arranged in rows. The lights were soft. The room did not feel like a stage. It felt like a living room filled with strangers. She sat at the small upright piano the center had. Her fingers trembled at first, but she remembered how she felt the first night she played at the restaurant. She remembered how she relaxed after the first few notes, so she breathed in and started. Her music filled the room. It was gentle, soft, warm. People listened. People leaned forward. People closed their eyes. People nodded slowly like they understood something without words. When she finished, she lifted her hands softly from the keys and closed the lid. The room was not loud. No wild applause. No shouting. Just soft appreciation. But that soft sound felt like the most honest kind of acceptance she could ever receive. When she walked off the small stage, one person from the audience stopped her and said, "Thank you for that." She nodded and felt her heart grow fuller. After the event ended, she sat outside for a moment before heading home. She looked at the sky. She thought about how much her life had changed in such a short time. She was still a server. She still worked her shift. She still wiped tables. She still tied her apron every night. But she was also someone else now. Someone who played again. Someone who shared something real. Someone who made music, not because she wanted praise or big awards, but because it helped people breathe a little softer. Because it helped her breathe a little softer, too. She was not famous. She was not celebrated on television. She was not known in big cities, but she was known in her own small corner of the world, and that was enough. As she walked home that night, she smiled to herself. She never expected a single moment at a piano in a storage room to open a door like this, but life sometimes waits for the quiet moments, and sometimes a person changes not because they try to win anything, but because they allow themselves to be who they already were inside. And she finally understood something she once forgot. She was never just a server. She was someone who could make a room pause. Someone who could make a moment feel gentle. A person who could make strangers stop and feel something. A person who could turn simple notes into feelings. A person who could play